and was the subject matter of that conversation dealing with cups?
Yes.
And after you had this conversation with this lady, did you see her do anything with regard to any cup that was in or around that Bronco?
No.
Did anyone remove these 2 cups you saw off the Bronco?
Yes.
Who removed them?
I did.
And did you remove it or remove both of them?
Yes, I did.
And did you remove them after the conversation you had with this lady, the photographer?
I think I did.
Do you know the name of this female photographer you spoke with, sir?
I'd like to change that answer.
Okay, you certainly may, sir.
I think I moved them before I had the conversation with her.
All right, well, let's see if we can get the sequence straight. You saw 2 cups, styrofoam cups, on the Bronco, the hood of the Bronco, right?
Yes.
Is that the first thing you observed with regard to the Bronco and the
Yes.
cups? Then did you have the conversation with your partner, Angela Guzman, after that?
Yes.
Then, did you then remove the 2 cups after that conversation with Angela Guzman?
Yes.
Then did you have the conversation with the female photographer?
Yes.
Since you removed the 2 cups, was any liquid in either one of those 2 cups?
I think there was some liquid in one of the cups.
All right. Was one cup empty, if you recall, or were they both have some liquid in them?
I really don't remember too much about the other cup.
All right. So we don't recall about one cup, but let's talk about the cup you remember, okay?
Okay.
What do you recall as being in that other cup, sir?
I remember coffee being in that cup.
All right. And you removed the cup, the one with the coffee in it, and what'd you do with it?
I placed it on the curb near the Bronco.
All right. What'd you do with the second cup, sir?
It was placed next to the first cup.
They were both placed there, is that right?
Yes.
Were either of these cups ever photographed, if you know?
I don't think so.
All right. And when you removed the 2 cups from the hood of the Bronco, did you see one of those circles that coffee cups sometimes leave, like on the bottom of it?
Yes, I did.
And did you see one was kind of a circle or a ring?
Yes.
And did you see 1 or 2?
I distinctly remember seeing one.
All right. You don't remember a second one?
I don't recall if there was a second one or not.
All right. And so this, and was the ring that you remember, the circle or ring that you remember, was that from the cup that had the coffee therein?
I'm pretty sure it was.
All right. Now, in this, after you remove the 2 cups, the one with the coffee, as I understand the sequence of events, that's when you then had the conversation with this female photographer. Is that correct?
Yes.
And how long did that conversation take place?
I would say it lasted about 15 seconds.
And in that conversation, did the subject matter of the cup with the coffee therein come up? The answer said yes or no.
Yes.
Did you at some point give her back the cup of coffee and she did something with it? Well, I'm asking. Thank you.
I really don't remember if it was given back to her.
All right.
But that's very possible that I did give the cups back to her
Okay,
to throw
sir.
away.
All right. Now, let's see now. With regard to your statement in this case, you had occasion to be interviewed by Detective Ron Phillips of the West Los Angeles Detective Bureau about April 7th, 1995 at 7:20 hours. Is that correct? Remember that?
Yes.
And if I were to show you a copy of that statement, might that refresh your recollection of whether or not you gave the cup of coffee back to the lady and that she threw it away?
It might.
May I approach her?
You may.
Counsel has this.
Yeah, Mr. Darden, you have a copy of this report? All right, proceed.
I'll show you this part. I notice you're shaking your head. Have you had occasion now to review This portion of the report, and for the record, Your Honor, I guess I'm talking about the third full paragraph on the second page of the report of Detective Phillips' interview with Officer Don Thompson. Have you read that now?
Yes.
And in reviewing that, does that refresh your recollection of what you told Detective Phillips back in April of 1995?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection of what took place on June 13th, 1994?
Yes, it does.
All right, tell us what happened, sir. Regarding
Starting from when I first saw the cups of coffee,
yes, why don't you start there?
I went back to the front. I saw 2 styrofoam cups on the hood of the Bronco. I asked my partner about the 2 styrofoam cups. She had made mention to the female photographer. I removed the 2 styrofoam cups, placed it on the curb, and I went to the photographer.
You talked to her?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And after you talked to her, what happened after that?
I gave the cups to her, and I'm assuming that she threw them away.
Right, you gave both cups to her, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, would you be able to identify that photographer if you saw her again?
Yes, I would.
And did you take her name, by the way?
No, I didn't.
However, you did make a note of this, and you entered the incident on the vehicle impound report. Is that correct?
Yes.
And did you try and make sure that photographs were taken of the coffee stains on the hood?
No, I didn't.
But you saw those yourself. Is that right?
Yes.
Now, while you're also out there at Rockingham that morning, did you ever see a lady run up to the Bronco and touch it on the driver's side door? Another female?
No, I didn't see a lady run up and touch it.
All right, did you ever see a lady approach the Bronco and appear to look in from the driver's side?
Not at that time.
All right, you saw that at some time, however, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And when in relation to June 13th, 1994, did you see a lady in close proximity to the Bronco on the driver's side, apparently peering in the window? Is that on television?
I saw it on television.
And when did you see it on television? I'll have to pick it up.
That was within a week or so after the incident had occurred.
So, within a week of June 13th, is that correct?
Yes.
Have you seen that video recently at all?
I've seen it, but not very recently.
All right. Did you have occasion at all on the date of June 13th to speak with that lady, that particular lady who was appearing in the Bronco?
Prior to that incident, yes, I did talk to her.
And you talked to that lady? And
Yes.
when was that you talked to her?
It was earlier in the morning.
And so we're clear, we're talking about the morning of June 13th?
Yes.
This is prior to Mr. Simpson's return. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what time it was early in the morning you talked to this lady?
Could have been sometime between 10 and 11.
All right. Do you know her name?
No.
What were the circumstances? What were the circumstances surrounding your conversation with her that morning between 10 and 11?
She continued to ask me questions about various things in the driveway and the Bronco.
This particular lady did?
Yes.
And do you know what her occupation was? Were you able to ascertain that?
I would only assume that she was with the news media.
All right. You don't know that for sure, though, right? Or do you?
I'm pretty certain I think I did see a press pass.
Okay. So she was interrogating you about various things, is that correct?
Yes.
And then, as I understand it, that was between 10 and 11. You didn't actually see her peering or looking inside the Bronco until after the incident. Is that correct?
That's correct.
But you recognized her as the same lady who had been asking you questions earlier that morning. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
All right, ma'am, just a second, Your Honor.
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to mark as defendant's next in order Exhibit 1251, and I'd like to have Mr. Darden take a look at it if he wants, and then ask the officer a question or two about it.
Mr. Cochran, is this the same piece we've seen before?
Yes, he's seen it before, but this item under Mr. Cochran. I want to give him a chance to see it again.
All right, well, in the future, let's do this before we have the jury out here, please.
Mr. Harris, would you please proceed? Your Honor, this will be 1251.
Is this the videotape of somebody walking up to the
Yes,
Bronco?
sir. We've seen it, yes.
He
Yes,
recognizes
recognize
the
the lady.
individual who's there. Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. You may proceed. Thank you, Your Honor. All right, I want you to take a look at this, Officer Thompson. Is that the Bronco you were talking about?
Yes, it is.
Okay, sir. Now, stop it there. That lady who has run up to the vehicle with the cap on and a white shirt and pants and tennis shoes, you recognize that lady?
Yes, I do.
And is that the lady that you had been talking with between 10 and 11 on June 13th who'd been asking you a lot of questions?
Yes.
And is this the footage that you saw about a week after June 13th?
Yes, it is.
You believe that lady's with the press, do you?
Yes.
And we don't know her. You cannot give us her name. Is that right at this point?
I don't know her name, but I definitely remember an accent, an English accent.
An English as in Great Britain or UK?
Yes, or possibly Australian.
All right. That's all you can tell us at this point?
Yes.
Okay, sir. You may continue on, sir. Is that it? It's fine, sir. Just so that we're clear, the conversation that you had with this lady with the English accent, who we subsequently saw in that video, was that conversation before or after the conversation with the female photographer with regards to the cups on the Bronco, the two cups?
That was before.
The conversation with the lady who spoke English
Yes.
was before that.
Yes.
So you dealt with two different ladies on that occasion, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming today, Officer Thompson.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Darden?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Officer Thompson.
Good afternoon, sir.
You and I met each other last Friday evening, is that correct?
That's right.
And since that time, I've made you available to Mr. Cochran and Mr. Douglas to be interviewed by them, is that right?
That's correct.
Before going over to Rockingham, you went over to Bundy that morning, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
You arrived at Bundy around 6:55 in the morning?
Sustained.
Make an offer of proof. I understand the court's prior ruling, Judge. Okay, if I can just ask a couple of questions.
Couple.
Thank you. Can you left Bundy at 8:05 approximately?
Yes.
Okay. And from there, you went over to Rockingham, is that right?
That's right.
Now, prior to leaving Bundy, did you have a chance to look around?
Object, Your Honor, this is beyond the scope.
I like to approach and make an offer.
Sustained. Proceed.
You understand the term probable cause, Officer Thompson?
Let me see at the sidebar with Corporal. Gentlemen, this discussion's gonna take a little longer than I thought. We're gonna take our break right now, so why don't you all step back into the jury room, take your mid-afternoon break, and then I'll chat with the lawyers here for a few moments out of your presence, all right? Remember all my admonitions to you. All right, officer, you can step down, don't go away. Porter, would you resume your spot there, please? All right, the record should reflect that the jury has withdrawn from the courtroom. All right, Mr. Darden, my understanding is that you wish to inquire on cross-examination of Officer Thompson what information he had that, in his mind, justified detaining Mr. Simpson at the time that he arrived at his premises, approximately noon on June the 13th, correct?
That's correct, Your Honor. Mr. Cochran has made an issue of the fact that the defendant was handcuffed in 30 seconds or 45 seconds upon his arrival at the house, and he has raised this rush to judgment issue before this jury, and I think that I'm sure that the court would agree. I think any lawyer would agree that there's more than sufficient probable cause at that point to place this defendant in handcuffs, and we would like the opportunity to rebut this inference that counsel has raised before this jury, a wrongful inference, and establish before the jury and show the jury that in normal police practice, given the information known to this officer, there was more than sufficient probable cause to arrest him, to place him in handcuffs. There's nothing wrong with what happened with this defendant at 360 Rockingham, and had he not been a celebrity or somebody else, he'd have been arrested and handcuffed less than 30 seconds. And I think the jury should be made aware of that.
But isn't the testimony of this officer that he was following the directions of Detective Van Adder? That he was instructed by somebody else, and that it was Detective Van Adder who made the probable cause determination, not this particular officer?
That's correct, Your Honor, but this officer, as a member of the LAPD, has no duty to follow or comply with an unlawful order from a Detective 3, which Van Adder was. Had he not believed in the propriety of placing this defendant in handcuffs, he could have objected. He didn't have to do it, but he did, and he did it because he knew or he had some information about the crime scene at Bundy because he had been there. He knew about the bodies, he knew about the footprints, he knew about the blood drop, I believe, that ended at the driveway. He knew and saw the blood in the Bronco. He knew about that. He saw the blood drops leading away from the Bronco and the blood drops leading up the driveway into the foyer of the house. And because we're talking about an issue of probable cause, I'd suggest as well that he has the right to rely on hearsay. He should be allowed to tell the jury everything he knew and heard that morning that would suggest to any reasonable police officer that this defendant had killed 2 people. He should have been arrested, and the jury should be made aware of that. And they should be made aware of it in the context of this so-called rush to judgment.
And what is your contemplated cross-examination of Officer Thompson at this point? That he was at Bundy, that he was aware of the crime scene issues?
Yes.
He was aware of the blood at the Rockingham address, and based upon that, he saw no reason to disagree with Detective Van Adder's determination to hook up Mr. Simpson?
Yes, yes.
I could do that in 3 questions.
Well, it'd be more dramatic if we did it in 15, Your Honor.
But we're not here for drama, are we, Mr. Darden?
Well, I'm not anymore. But You know, also, you know, I think it's important.
That wasn't an appropriate comment, Mr. Cochran. That was a cheap shot.
I'm sorry, did Mr. Cochran apologize?
Not yet, but he will.
But I think it's important to establish before the jury that these officers acted in good faith, Your Honor, and that this is not some conspiracy, and that the officers did not act maliciously toward this defendant.
Mr. Cochran?
First of all we're trying to get here is a fair trial. Before we started this proceeding, this record should reflect that I approached the bench, to Your Honor, and asked you, went through this officer's report. As an offer proof, told you what I would go into. There was a particular area I would not go into. You indicated that would not be allowed to go into. You know, the reason why this trial has lasted so long is because we have all these whatever their minds may think up, they want to go over and rehash. We've heard this for 6 months in their case. And now I cannot believe the court is entertaining the thought of allowing them to do that again. We made it very clear what I was going to go into. Then I did exactly that, Your Honor. I mean, what we want is a fair trial here. I mean, it seems that whenever we limit everything we're doing, we're the ones moving this case, and it's grossly unfair. This officer's state of mind has nothing to do with it. All we sought to prove is just the facts. They're always talking about the truth of the situation. The truth of the matter is, Mr. Simpson returned here at 12 o'clock on June 13th, and within 30 to 45 seconds, he was handcuffed. Now, that's what I brought out, and there were 2 coffee cups on the Bronco. Now, to allow them to go back and talk about some blood on Bundy, we heard about this for months, Your Honor. We've heard about all that. Probable cause is not an issue. His state of mind is not an issue. Van Adder is the one. I specifically elicited. Van Adder is the one who said, hook him up. The fact that the court could ask those questions in 2 or 3 questions, that's very nice, Your Honor. But then Your Honor's no longer in the district attorney's office. That's their job. And as the judge, we ask you I want Mr. Simpson to have a fair trial. And the fair trial comes about when we approach, ask you for certain rulings in advance so we can rely upon those things. And when the people come right behind, he starts talking about Bundy, and I object, and it's beyond the scope clearly. You know, what can we rely on? And I think that's the point, Your Honor, that we're asking. This is not relevant. His state of mind is not relevant, has nothing to do with it at all. All I sought to bring out was what the facts were, Your Honor, as they existed on that morning, and that's all we elicited. And I tried to use the videos, they want to talk about truth, of what actually took place. This officer told a straightforward story, and that was all. In no way did I attack him. I just elicited the facts from what they were. Now, counsel wants to go and now bring out his state of mind, and then they make all these statements. I mean, you know, Your Honor, that's what this trial is all about, isn't it, as to who did it. I mean, the fact that they think Mr. Simpson is guilty has nothing to do with reality. There's the truth, and there's the truth according to them. And I just would ask, Your Honor, to counsel all of us as advocates. We don't make those kind of statements. We just go right down the middle. He's presumed to be innocent. That's the rule in America when last I looked. So all these statements about he should have been hooked up if he hadn't been innocent, that's preposterous. A jury, the conscience of this community, will make the judgment in that regard. It doesn't matter if the state of mind or whether Van Adder was right or whatever. Ultimately, all of these facts we put together in a search for truth, Your Honor. Not that there was blood over there. We know about that. It's not as though they've been precluded. You gave them 6 months to get everything they wanted to, so they finally sat down and said they arrested. Now they want to put on their case during our case. And I cannot count the times that we would approach the bench and you would say, counsel, it's their case. They can put it on any way they want to. And it's our turn now. And so what we do is approach you and ask you to limit certain things. You say we're going to limit them, and now we're wasting time again with another major argument. And the fact that you could do it in three questions, you know, and I apologize if I don't perceive it to be a cheap shot. What he said was, he says, I'm out of drama. I said, yes, after the gloves. Now, that wasn't a cheap shot. That's your interpretation. I didn't think it was.
I thought it was.
Well, it's your court, so if you think it was, then I apologize. But I don't think that's a cheap shot. I was responding to what Mr. Darden said to my colleagues.
Counsel, Mr. Darden and I were discussing a matter, and you piped in with that, which I took to be a cheap shot.
Well, I didn't think it was a cheap shot, but I was talking to Mr. Shapiro. I did not, when you say pipe in, but you hear very well, Your Honor, so I accept that, and I apologize.
Mr. Cochran,
I
you think
apologize.
about that.
I will, Your Honor.
Thompson matter, all parties are again present. All right, counsel, I'm going to sustain the 352 objection to going into the facts and circumstances that would have led Officer Don Thompson to arrest Mr. Simpson were that his independent determination. I will allow one question of Officer Thompson. Did he disagree with the direction to detain Mr. Simpson and place him in handcuffs at that time? That's the only question I'll allow in that vein. All right, let's have the jury, please. And Mr. Cochran and Mr. Darden, I want to see both of you in my chambers when we conclude this afternoon.
Sorry.
And that'll be with the court reporter.
Did Your Honor want to reschedule the sanctions motion that was scheduled for 1 o'clock?
You know, I completely forgot about that.
You know, Your Honor, can I address that a moment? As with regard to timing, Jess?
Timing? I'm sorry, I forgot we had Mr. Ullman down from Stanford.
I kind of thought he might have been here to examine Mr. Meraz, or else I would have said something to him earlier, and I apologize. No, I didn't know.
No problem.
You're not going to be doing Mr. Meraz, I take it?
No.
With respect to that, Your Honor, and I do apologize to counsel, but we were going to ask that we take this up on Friday, if that's all right with the court. I do not know what other plans there are, but this motion has become much bigger than I thought.
All right, Mr. Neufeld, you seem to have a reaction to Friday.
I do have a slight reaction. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Good afternoon, sir.
Which is simply that, as I think Mr. Douglas has told you before, McDonald on the witness stand tomorrow. The discovery is now complete, and he is here in Los Angeles, and we intended to do the sanction motion for 1 o'clock this afternoon.
May I be heard to that, Your Honor?
Yes.
I just want to say, though, so if you want to do it at 5 or 5:30 or whatever, that's acceptable as well.
The problem with that, Your Honor, is that we had no opportunity to evaluate the legal issues raised by the late discovery dropped on us by defense counsel. There was apparently an examination conducted back in April. The report of that examination was given to us just a few days ago. I can't think of any legal or, I can't think of any forensic or scientific reason why you'd want to delay a report for 3
Well,
months.
let's not argue that issue. Just
Right.
out of curiosity, who is Dr. McDonald?
Mr. McDonald, I don't know that he's doctor, is blood spatter. They're blood spatter expert.
Okay.
And the reason that we had to evaluate all the reports that he submitted, and then we determined that the reports.
Oh, I just want to know what he's going to testify to. All right, we'll take it up at
Okay.
5.
Well, Your Honor, the problem is that we have briefs to file on this. It goes to not just discovery sanctions, but it goes to preclusion of the testimony completely, because it's irrelevant under 352. These are substantial legal arguments. It's not a discovery issue, just a discovery issue. That's the tip of the iceberg. There's much more to this.
Why don't we take it up at 5?
We have briefs to give to the court. They'll be ready in half an hour, but I thought the court might want more time than that.
Well, let's see how far we get.
All right.
All right, let's have the jurors, please. All right, Officer Thompson, would you resume the witness stand, please? And the record should reflect that we've been rejoined by all the members of our jury panel. All right, officer, why don't you pull the microphone up close? Mr. Darden.
Thank you for returning, officer.
You're welcome.
Officer, when we left off, you told us that you had visited the crime scene at Bundy. Is that correct?
Yes,
And you had a chance to look around the scene at Rockingham somewhat. Is that correct?
at Rocking,
At Rockingham. Overruled.
Is that correct?
at Rockingham?
Yes.
Yes.
And when Detective Van Adder said what he said to you that caused you to handcuff this defendant, you didn't think it was wrong to handcuff the defendant, did you?
Rephrase the question.
Well, did you think it was wrong to handcuff the defendant given what you knew and what you had seen that day?
Overruled.
No, I didn't.
When you arrived sometime after 8:05, you saw the Bronco parked there. Is that correct?
Yes,
And you understand that when you're doing a crime scene investigation that you have to sort of tape off the crime scene area. Is that correct?
you have to protect the crime scene.
Okay. And that is commonly done by using tape, right?
Yes,
By using police officers
yes,
and by setting up a perimeter around that crime scene. Is that correct?
sometimes yes.
Now, in this situation, the Bronco was parked out on the street, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Did you consider putting up yellow tape around that Bronco?
That was considered momentarily.
You considered that?
Yes.
But you didn't, did you?
No, I didn't.
Now, how long have you been a police officer?
It'll be 8 years on the 13th of October.
Okay, so you've been a police officer 7 years, approximately, back in June of 1994.
7 years, 9 months, 5 days.
Okay. Like that, huh? Okay. And you'd been in many, many crime scenes before, hadn't you, officer?
Yes, I have.
In fact, you're a training officer, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
What is a training officer?
It's an officer who trains new police officers who have just graduated from the police academy.
And despite your experience, after having gone to other crime scenes, despite the fact that you're a training officer, you did not tape off the area surrounding that Bronco. Is that correct?
Overruled.
That's true.
Okay. And why not?
It would have been extremely difficult to tape off that Bronco because of its position in the street.
What about the Bronco's position made it difficult to tape it off?
There was nothing around the Bronco which would have allowed me to secure tape around the Bronco.
Well, the Bronco's parked at the curb, right?
Yes,
Okay. And about, what, 10 feet away from the passenger door, there was a fence and some vines growing up.
Overruled. Just allowed to leave. Proceed.
that's true. Yes, there is.
Okay. Why
It's
not?
a wall.
Okay. Why not tie the tape around the wall and then tie it around the Bronco and back around to the wall again?
Usually you don't let the crime scene tape touch a part of evidence. And there's really nothing there which would have allowed me to tie crime scene tape to a wall and then tie it to another portion of the wall and keep the Bronco within that portion tied off.
So given the position of the Bronco, then it just wasn't a practical thing to do. Is that correct?
And that's correct.
But you had another reason. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
And what was that other reason?
I didn't want to draw attention to the Bronco.
And in fact, very little attention was paid to the Bronco that morning. Is that correct?
Rephrase the question. It assumes facts that aren't in evidence at this point.
Now With regard to what Detective Van Adder told you, you told us this afternoon that he told you to place the defendant in handcuffs as soon as he arrives. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Now, you were interviewed by Detective Phillips on April 7, 1995. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when you spoke to Detective Phillips, you told Detective Phillips you weren't sure if Detective Van Adder told you to handcuff him or whether he told you to hook him up. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
But it could have been either one of the two.
Okay. One or the other.
Yes.
You're not sure which one, right?
No.
All you know is that whatever it was that he said to you, you interpreted that to mean that you should handcuff the defendant as soon as he showed up.
That's right.
Detective Van Adder didn't use the word arrest, did he?
No, he didn't.
He didn't say we're going to take him to jail, did he?
No, he didn't.
He didn't say we're going to charge him with murder, did he?
No, he didn't.
LAPD was serving a search warrant at that house at that time, weren't they?
I don't know.
Was the house being secured by the LAPD at that time?
Yes, it was.
And that would have been either to serve a search warrant or to obtain a search warrant. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when the police secure a residence like they did in this case, isn't it true that no civilian is allowed to come onto the property?
That's true.
The scene at Rockingham was a crime scene in your mind, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
You don't allow civilians to enter a crime scene, do you?
No, you don't.
Now, after Detective Van Adder spoke to you, the defendant arrived within seconds, didn't he?
Yes.
He got out of a car,
Yes.
and you just watched the videotape a few minutes ago, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
You saw a black bag hanging from the defendant's shoulder,
Yes.
a black leather duffel bag.
Possibly was leather duffel.
You didn't see a black garment bag hanging over the defendant's shoulder, did you?
No.
Did you see a Louis Vuitton garment bag in the defendant's hand at that time?
No.
Did you see the defendant hand Robert Kardashian a Louis Vuitton garment bag down the street?
Foundation.
Did you see Mr. Kardashian at the location that morning?
Yes, I did.
Did you see him at the location prior to your seeing the defendant?
I don't remember if it was shortly before or shortly after.
Well, when you saw Mr. Kardashian, was he carrying a piece of luggage?
Yes, he was.
What was he carrying?
It looked like a Louis Vuitton
Garment bag?
garment bag made for a suit.
And had anyone told you to seize any luggage the defendant might have in his possession when you saw him?
No.
Had anyone told you to seize any luggage Mr. Kardashian might have had in his possession when you saw him?
No.
Did you notice whether or not the Louis Vuitton bag Kardashian had? Did you notice whether or not it was full?
Yes.
Did it appear full?
Yes, it did.
Are you aware that when the bag appeared here in court, it was empty?
Sustain. Sustain.
Did Mr. Kardashian offer that bag to you? That is the Louis Vuitton bag?
No, he didn't.
And did you have in your mind legal cause to seize that bag at that time?
Sustain.
Did you have any reason to seize the bag at that time?
Overruled. Overruled.
No, I didn't.
Did you allow Mr. Kardashian to enter the premises at Rockingham?
No, I didn't.
Did he attempt to?
Yes, he did.
And he attempted to do that while he was carrying that bag, is that correct?
I'm not really sure of that.
Did you and Mr. Kardashian ever discuss the contents of that bag?
No, he didn't.
Was it ever brought to your attention that morning that the bag belonged to the defendant?
No, it wasn't brought to my attention.
Mr. Kardashian did tell you that.
No.
Oral.
May I? Let me show you the Louis Vuitton garment bag that has been marked Defendant's 1062. The garment bag that you saw in Mr. Kardashian's hand, did it look just like that one?
Yes, it did.
Does that bag appear empty?
Yes, it does.
Would you like to open it up and make sure?
Well, counsel, we've already been through this with another
It
witness.
seems to be empty.
That isn't the condition, or that wasn't the condition the bag was in when you saw it, was it?
No.
Now, when the defendant first got out of the vehicle, and I think you saw that on the videotape, is that right?
Yes.
You saw him get out of the vehicle,
On the videotape, I did.
and you say that he got out of the vehicle and he walked toward the driveway. Is that correct?
He walked directly into the driveway.
Okay. And you told us that he appeared to be hurried. Is that right?
Yes.
That's how you described his demeanor. Is that right?
Yes.
If I can have one moment, Your Honor. As he walked up that driveway, he wasn't crying, was he?
No, he wasn't.
He didn't appear despondent, did he?
Oral.
No, he didn't.
You understand the word despondent, officer?
Yes.
What does that word mean to you?
It means very sad, grieving, upset.
He wasn't like that, was he?
He didn't seem that way to me.
In fact, he had a blank, hurried look about his face, didn't he?
Phrase question.
Did he have a blank look about him?
Somewhat, yes.
And as he walked up the driveway, he wasn't limping, was he?
I didn't see him limping.
The moment you saw him, you knew you were going to have to handcuff him, didn't you?
Yes,
You're a police officer, correct?
that's right.
Did he walk past you?
Yes, he did.
And as he walked past you, did you attempt to stop him from walking past you?
No, I didn't.
You say anything to him?
Not as he was walking by me, I was placing my radio back in my holster.
So you weren't ready for him, were you?
No.
Okay. So he breezed past you, didn't he?
Yes.
You had to catch up to him.
Yes, I did.
And when you caught up to the defendant, you didn't tackle him, did you?
Sustain.
When you caught up to the defendant, you placed your hand, your left hand on his right wrist. Is that right?
Yes.
And you didn't grab his wrist and twist it around his back, did you, officer?
Oral.
No, I didn't.
You just sort of lightly grabbed his wrist to get his attention, didn't you?
Oral.
Initially, I didn't grab his wrist. I just placed my hand in front of his left arm to slow him down.
Okay. Did that work?
No, it didn't.
Then you grabbed his wrist?
Yes, I had to grab it.
Okay. Did that stop him?
It got his attention.
Did he continue to walk at that point?
Yes,
You were in uniform, right?
yes.
What happened next?
I was verbalizing with Mr. Simpson throughout that episode.
And at some point you did get his attention, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Did you eventually stop him in the driveway?
Actually, I don't think we ever got completely stopped. We did slow down a bit after I grabbed his arm to get his attention.
Okay. And you spoke to him at that point, right?
Yes,
Okay. And at that particular time, did you feel like you had some control over the situation?
after I had his attention, I felt like I was in control.
And you knew you had to handcuff him, right?
Yes.
You could have handcuffed him in the driveway, couldn't you?
Yes, I could have.
How many TV cameras were there out there in the middle of the street at that time?
Many.
Okay. And when those TV people, those reporters and cameramen saw the defendant arrive, they all converged on that driveway, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
But you didn't handcuff the defendant in front of those TV cameras.
No, I didn't.
You attempted to take the defendant out of view.
Sustain. No, it assumes facts that aren't in evidence is what it does.
Did you take the defendant to a certain area on the property?
Yes, I did.
And why did you take him there?
Because I didn't want to make a big scene there in the driveway.
And where did you take him at that point?
Took him to the dollhouse or whatever it's called underneath a tree.
And it was there that you handcuffed the defendant?
Yes.
And when you handcuffed the defendant there underneath the tree, you didn't think anyone outside the compound could see you, did you?
No, I didn't.
And you didn't want anybody to see you handcuff the defendant, correct?
It really didn't matter to me. I just wanted to do it for the dignity of the defendant.
But there was one camera person that actually got a camera shot of you handcuffing the defendant, right?
No,
that right?
we got the videotape.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, there was one camera that you saw at that time, right?
That's correct.
And that camera person, where was that camera person during the time that you were handcuffing the defendant?
He was climbing the wall at Ashford with his video camera and videotaping me and the defendant after he had climbed the wall.
And you came to realize that that cameraman was there only after you had already handcuffed the defendant, is that right?
I'm not really sure if it was before or after.
At any event, you knew you couldn't get the guy off the wall at that point, right?
That's true.
Now, after you handcuffed the defendant, you say you turned him over to some detectives.
Yes.
In fact, while you were handcuffing the defendant, you saw some detectives exit the front door of the defendant's house. Is that right?
I think out of a corner of my eye, I saw someone there.
Those detectives went immediately to where you and the defendant were. Is that right?
True.
And one of those detectives was Detective Van Adder, correct?
That's true.
And as Detective Van Adder approached, you turned to go back to the gate at Rockingham. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And you had to go back to the gate at Rockingham because the media people were creating a scene there, right? Causing a disturbance.
Overall.
Is that right?
Yes, I was concerned that the media would be giving my partner a little too much to worry about.
I'm sorry, what was your partner's name?
Officer Guzman.
Did you leave the, let's strike that. As you walked away, did you, let's strike that. Yana, can I just show some footage, video footage?
Which exhibit is this, counsel?
One moment, let me just check. Show a small portion of 124.
Is this the same video footage?
Yes, the one we just saw.
Just a moment, cue it up.
Question. Officer, isn't it true that within 10 seconds of your handcuffing the defendant, Detective Van Adder arrived and reached in his pocket to remove a handcuff key?
I didn't see that.
Okay. But you have seen the footage of the handcuffing and what followed immediately thereafter, correct?
Yes.
Let me show you a portion of the videotape you just saw. 124. Stop there. You see Detective Van Adder reaching into his pocket?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Thank you. You saw the defendant unhandcuffed a moment later, is that correct?
Overall.
Yes, later I did see the defendant not in handcuffs.
Okay, and how long?
Overall.
And how long after you handcuffed him was it that you saw him without handcuffs?
I would say it was within a minute or so. Minute, 2 minutes.
And when you saw the defendant at that time, was he walking down the driveway?
Yes, he was.
He was walking in your direction, correct?
Yes.
Because you were at the mouth of the driveway trying to hold the press back, is that right?
Yes.
Is this a tape that's already been marked?
It hasn't been marked, but it is it is one the court has seen. At least we don't think it's been marked.
Proceed.
This would be people's next in order, Your Honor.
Mr. Roberts. 527. I already had it, 527. 527.
Okay. Officer, if you just take a look at your monitor there. Let's stop right there. Now, officer, you see Mr. Simpson walking down the driveway,
Yes, I do.
and he is accompanied to his right by Howard Weitzman.
Yes.
Okay, he's a criminal defense attorney.
Yes.
Okay, and to Mr. Simpson's left is Detective Van Adder. Is that correct?
Yes.
And as these three men walk down the driveway, the defendant is actually behind Detective Van Adder. Is that correct?
Yes, he is.
Is that the appropriate manner in which a police officer should walk with someone who's been arrested on 2 counts of murder?
No, it is not.
Had the defendant been under arrest at that point, he would have been walking ahead of Detective Van Adder. Is that correct?
Yes, he would have.
That would be proper procedure, right?
Well, it would have been good officer safety and good
Because-
common sense.
Proceed on. Let's stop here for a moment. You never saw the defendant limping, did you?
No.
Is that it? That's it, Your Honor. Now, officer, after you strike that, was it after Mr. Simpson left in the vehicle that you saw the coffee cups on the Bronco?
Yes, it was.
And had you had an opportunity to see the Bronco prior to the defendant's arrival?
Yes.
Can you fix for us the amount of time that coffee cup was on the hood of the Bronco?
I don't think it could have been any more than 5 minutes.
And just so the record is clear, there's no allegation that Mr. Simpson hit anyone with the Bronco, right?
I'm sorry, repeat?
Well, the hood of the Bronco, did you consider the hood portion of the Bronco to somehow have some extra significance or importance to the case at all?
I consider the entire Bronco to have significance in the case.
Well, had you seen any blood on the Bronco that morning?
Yes, I did.
Where?
On the driver's side, or should I say just above the driver's side door handle.
And had you seen any blood inside the Bronco that day?
Yes, I did.
What time was it that you saw blood inside that Bronco?
That was earlier in the morning. I would say maybe 8:30.
Okay. So you must have walked up to the Bronco, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Did you touch it?
No.
Did you grab the door handles to see if the vehicle was locked?
No.
Did you ever see anyone open the Bronco up and go inside?
No, I didn't.
Know whether or not the Bronco was locked?
I don't know if it was locked or not.
And that's because you didn't check to see if it was locked, right?
Well, in addition to that, I couldn't visually tell either if it was locked just by looking inside.
And you didn't touch the Bronco because you didn't want to somehow compromise the integrity of the evidence. Is that correct?
That's true.
Can I have one moment, Your Honor? You were out at Rockingham. Did you ever see anyone go inside the Bronco?
No, I didn't.
Did you see anyone touch it at all?
No, I didn't.
And to save some time, you've tried to be truthful and accurate here today. Is that correct?
That's true.
You're testifying to things as best you could recall. Is that right?
That's true.
Are you part of some conspiracy to frame this defendant, officer?
No, I'm not.
Did you see anything that day that caused you to suspect that others in your department, your fellow officers, were somehow involved in a conspiracy to frame this defendant?
No.
Thank you, sir.
Cochran?
Officer Thompson, I believe you shared with us you've been a police officer for over 8 years with LAPD, is that correct?
No.
How long?
7 years,
7
9
years.
months, 5 days.
As of today?
Yes.
You counted that? Oh, yes, I thought that was earlier, so you counted those, huh? But who's counting anyway, right? You enjoy your job,
I'm
don't you?
counting.
You are counting? How long do you have to go then? Tell me how many more days do you have to go before you can leave?
That number's too large.
Is it too large? But you have it in mind, right?
One day
I understand.
it will happen.
And what is your rank now? What have you reached? What rank have you reached?
I'm a senior lead officer.
All right. And as such, you are a training officer now with LAPD?
Yes.
All right, good. Now, with regard to the events of this date that we've talked about on June 13th, 1994, as I understand it, the Bronco was never, there was never any yellow tape or anything like that put around the Bronco because logistically you didn't feel that was, you could really do it. Is that right, what you're saying?
That's true.
And you mentioned that that's why the yellow tape wasn't put actually around the Bronco itself as opposed to trying to anchor it someplace. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's
All right.
one of the reasons.
But because it wasn't secure, that was how these two ladies we've just talked about were able to get up to the Bronco and actually put 2 coffee cups up on it. Isn't that correct?
That's correct. I don't know if it was one person that put 2 cups up there. But
Well, maybe
saw
been 2
2
people.
cups.
All right, you're right. Could have been 2 people putting coffee cups on the Bronco, right?
That's possible.
Because you don't know, right?
That's true.
And then we saw the video of the other lady who walked up and was peering inside that Bronco, right?
That's true.
Now, one of the things you could have done, however, though, you could have stationed a police officer right by that Bronco, told everybody to get back. Couldn't you have done that?
There was an officer that was very close to the Bronco telling someone to stay back.
But you couldn't you put somebody and station them right by the Bronco and said, don't come and touch this Bronco? Could have done that, couldn't you?
You're asking me throughout the entire day having someone right by the
Yes,
Bronco?
well, I'm asking you, could you have placed someone right by the Bronco and said, an officer right by the Bronco, told everybody, don't touch this car? You could have done that, couldn't you?
I guess that could have been done, yes.
Could have been done, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, with regard to the Bronco, you've told us that you did not, you could not look and tell whether or not that Bronco was locked, could you?
That's true.
Okay, visually, you couldn't tell that. And then secondly, you yourself never checked the doors to make that determination, did you?
That's true.
All right. And as I understand it, your job primarily there was to provide security for people who were coming up in and around Rockingham. Is that correct?
No, my job was to protect the crime scene.
All right. I mean, it became a crime scene at some point. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you kept people out of there. Isn't that right?
Yes.
All right. So that Mr. Darden asked you these questions about Mr. Kardashian and others who came up there. Nobody could come on that property. Isn't that correct?
That's correct.
So whatever bags Mr. Simpson brought back with him from Chicago, he was not allowed to bring those bags on that property. Is that correct? Only what he had on his arm. Isn't that correct, sir?
What's the objection? Overruled.
He wasn't allowed to bring any bags on that property, was he?
No.
All right, they were turned away, and he was taken on the property and handcuffed. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, with regard to that, you told us he was handcuffed within 30 to 45 seconds of his arrival. After he was handcuffed, you then went back out to the front of the property. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
When you next saw Mr. Simpson, he was coming out to go downtown to talk to the detectives. Isn't that correct?
Objection, cause
Sustained.
Well, let me rephrase it, Your Honor. When you next saw Mr. Simpson, he was walking down this driveway in the company of Detective Phil Van Adder. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And you stood there and watched them get into some vehicles. Did Mr. Simpson get into the police vehicle?
I don't know if it was a police vehicle or not.
Well, think back for us. Is there any report by which you could refresh your recollection, sir?
The videotape would help.
Would it help you saw that videotape again to see what he got into? Let's see if we can play that again.
People's 527.
We're going to play, what is this number, Your Honor, 520?
527, I believe, is the last video played by the people.
Okay, well, let's take a look at this photograph and see if this video and see whether or not this might refresh your recollection. Can you see that? All right, now you see yourself in this photograph?
Yes.
You see that vehicle that Phil Van Adder is opening the front door of?
Yes.
Mr. Simpson's getting in the rear of that vehicle?
Yes.
That's the detective's vehicle, isn't it? Isn't that Detective Phil Van Adder's vehicle owned by the city of Los Angeles? Mr. Simpson's getting in the rear of that vehicle?
I can't tell if it is a city vehicle or not.
I see. Well, do you see that in the stop action here? Do you see Phil Van Adder toward the left front driver's door of that vehicle? You see him there?
Yes.
Do you see that in the left rear, Mr. Howard Weitzman?
Well, it looks like Mr. Wiseman is looking inside the left front door.
Isn't that the left? Well, and toward the left side of the vehicle, do you see Mr. Weitzman? The side that Mr. Simpson just gotten into, sir?
Yes.
All right. Is that the left rear? Seems like a four-door car, doesn't it?
Yes.
All right. So Mr. Simpson gets in and Mr. Weitzman's at that rear door, right?
Yes, it looks like
All right.
that now.
And then Mr. Van Adder is up at the left front of the vehicle, isn't he?
Yes.
All right. Now, as you think back, don't you recall that the detectives were driving plain cars that particular day, and then after Mr. Simpson got in the back, Van Adder was joined by another police officer, and they drove off? Do you recall that?
I don't remember who was driving the car, but I do remember seeing the car drive off.
All right. And Mr. Simpson was in the company of these two police officers, wasn't he?
If that was Detective Van Adder driving the car away, yes.
All right. You didn't see Mr. Simpson drive off in a Bentley, did you, sir?
No.
You didn't see him drive off in any car in that driveway, did you, sir?
No.
You saw him come out of the driveway and get into this car with some police officers, and you saw them leave the scene. Isn't that right, sir?
Yes.
All right. And did you know where they were going at that point?
No.
Did you ascertain at some later point where they were going? Just yes or no?
Oh, well.
No.
Now, do we see Van Etter get in that car? Let's back that up again. I want you to watch and see if Van Etter doesn't. That's your partner, Angela Guzman?
Yes.
You see that? Did you back that up a minute, Mr. Harris, please, sir? Back it up a little more. Now, do you see those two men there? That's Mr. Weitzman and Mr. Van Etter?
Yes.
Okay. Did you see thereafter? Let's see if we can play it forward. See Mr. Simpson getting inside the car. Seems as though they're the lawyer's talking to the detective, right?
Yes.
And thereafter, did it seem as though Van Etter got inside that car?
Yes.
All right. And so does that refresh your recollection that he got in the driver's compartment and at some point he then drove away with Mr. Simpson in the car?
Yes.
Like you can see him through the window, can't you?
Well, I could see him through the window, yes.
All right. Did you see a tall, gray-haired man out in the street who was waiting outside on Rockingham there that day?
There were so many people there. There were bound to be a few gray-haired people.
Okay, but you couldn't recall this particular tall, gray-haired man by the name of Skip Taft? Would that
No.
refresh your recollection? That
No.
doesn't? All right. But somebody at the scene had gray hair that day, right?
There were a lot of people there who had gray hair,
All right.
including me.
Now, Mr. Weitzman, the lawyer, was not in that car. He didn't get in that car and leave the scene in that car, did he?
No.
Like, you saw him leave, did you not, that day?
I know he left, but I don't remember seeing him leave.
All right. But he left in a car different than his then client, Mr. O.J. Simpson. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
He didn't go wherever these detectives took Mr. Simpson. Mr. Weitzman, the lawyer, was not in that car, was he?
I don't think he was.
And as you search your memory and look back, Mr. Simpson was in the back seat of that car all by himself. Isn't that correct?
From my own independent memory,
Yes.
I don't remember that from my own independent memory.
Well, let's refresh your memory by looking at this video. You never saw anybody else get inside the back seat of that car with Mr. Simpson, did you?
As of right now, no.
All right. Now, with regard to your testimony here today, Mr. Darden indicated that you and he met last Friday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is that to discuss your testimony that you were going to give here in this case?
I think he was interviewing witnesses.
And did he ask you to come over and talk to him?
Yes.
And did you then have occasion to talk to him
Yes, I did.
about the things that the two of you just have talked about?
Yes.
Is that correct? And as an LAPD officer, you work for the city of Los Angeles, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
And you protect and serve all the citizens, isn't that correct?
I'm sorry?
You protect and serve all the citizens, don't you? You protect and serve all citizens, don't you?
Yes, I do.
You're just as available to me as you are to Mr. Darden, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
So if I called you on the phone, you'd come and talk to me, wouldn't you?
Sure, I would.
You wouldn't hide from me, would you?
No?
In fact, you talked to me yesterday, in fact, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Now, sir, Mr. Darden asked you some questions about whether Van Etter said hook him up or cuff him. Still meant the same thing. Put handcuffs on him. Isn't that what that meant?
Yes.
You understood what that meant, isn't that right?
Yes.
And you complied with that, isn't that correct?
Yes, I did.
And then you then turned and then you left, and there was a period of time when Mr. Simpson was out of your sight, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And now, with regard to Mr. Simpson's emotional state, you recall I asked you some questions about that?
Yes.
And I reminded you that yesterday, when we talked here in this courtroom, you mentioned that he appeared agitated. Remember that? Remember those questions that I asked you?
Yes.
Now, you had never before seen Mr. Simpson before in close proximity to talk to him, had you?
No, I haven't.
So you don't know how he is when he's despondent or sad or down, do you?
Well, just from seeing people in general despondent or sad, I could.
We're talking about Mr. Simpson. You've never seen him before in that situation, have you?
No,
All right. This is the first time you had actually encountered him, isn't that right?
that's correct.
And were you aware that he just had come back from a flight from Chicago at the time you arrived there? Were you aware of that?
Sustained.
Well, were you aware he just had gotten off a plane? I'm asking you, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Were you aware he had no sleep that night?
Sustained. We're assuming facts that aren't evidence.
Well, may I ask it in a different way then, perhaps? Your
Please.
Honor? All right. Were you aware, you were told that Mr. Simpson was going to arrive there in a short period of time, isn't that correct?
Yes.
By one of the detectives?
Yes.
All right. Do you know where he had been the night before? I can ask him if he knows.
Counsel, the jury knows these facts.
I'm seeking, well, I can be correct. I think that he was allowed to ask. I'm going to ask him
No,
a
but I
question.
think the jury knows.
Okay.
We've heard testimony from people on the airline. The jury is smart enough to be able to put this witness's testimony in the context with the other
Certainly.
witnesses.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. Then I'll move on. Thank you.
Okay.
With regard to the way Mr. Simpson walked, do you notice that when he walks, he has this kind of peculiar walk? You notice a peculiar walk as he walks with kind of a limp, and he's kind of pigeon-toed and with bow legs. Did you notice that?
Sustained.
Was what?
Leading.
Okay, well, did you notice anything unusual about the way Mr. Simpson walks when he walks?
I noticed that he seems to have a long stride when he walks.
Did you notice that he appears to be bow-legged?
Objection, this is leading.
Sustained.
Is he bow-legged?
I don't know.
You weren't paying attention to the way O.J. Simpson walked that particular day, were you?
No, I wasn't.
Because what you were trying to do was carry out Van Adder's order to catch up to him, to hook him or cuff him. Isn't that correct, sir?
Your Honor, this is leading.
Sustained.
Well, you were trying to carry out the order of Detective Van Adder. Isn't that correct, sir?
It's still leading.
It is.
Well, it's just one leading.
One
So,
leading.
okay. So you were trying to carry out Detective Van Adder's instructions, isn't that right?
Same objection, Your Honor.
Oh, we'll waste more time
Isn't
going
that
through
right?
this.
Yes.
All right. And your focus was on dealing with Mr. Simpson, isn't that correct? Just catching up
At
to him?
that point in time, yes.
All right. And this conversation that you went into where the two of you then walked over toward the dollhouse in the tree, you were focusing on getting his hands behind him and then handcuffing him with your handcuffs. Isn't that right?
Your Honor, this is leading.
It is.
All right. What were you focusing on when you took him to the dollhouse by the tree?
I was just focusing on a number of things.
Was one of those things handcuffing him, sir?
Yes.
All right. And you then accomplished that, isn't that correct?
Yes.
That's when you then left and went back outside, isn't that right?
Yes.
And with regard to other people who might have touched or got close to that Bronco or got inside that Bronco, do you know about other people who touched it?
That assumes a fact not in evidence.
Sustained.
Let me ask this way. Were other reports brought to your attention regarding other people who touched the Bronco?
Never call for hearsay.
Sustained.
When you were in with Mr. Simpson, seeking to handcuff him or cuff him up, as Van Adder told you, do you know whether or not there was a police officer out there watching the Bronco at that point?
Yes, my partner was at the front entrance at Rockingham.
No, was she out there watching the Bronco is the question.
She was keeping the crowd back and watching the Bronco.
But you told Mr. Darden that one of the problems, the reason you had to rush back was because the media or the crowd was getting kind of unruly. Is that correct?
Yes.
So it was very difficult to do both, to watch the crowd, keep the media back, and watch this Bronco. Is that right?
That's correct.
You had a lot on your hands that morning. Is that right?
Yes.
Understand. Mr. Darden asked you some questions about the Louis Vuitton bag, which said that you had seen a bag that looked like that particular morning.
Yes.
You never asked anybody to give you that bag that morning, did you?
No.
In fact, the persons who had that bag couldn't even get on the property. Isn't that right?
Your Honor, this is leading.
It is.
Well, could the person who had that bag get on the property that morning?
At that time, no.
I think this is the third time we've asked that question now.
Thank you, Your Honor. May I have just a second, Your Honor?
Certainly.
Officer Thompson, you never at any time when you talked to Mr. Simpson ever told him that he couldn't unpack his luggage, did you? Oh.
No.
And when people come home from trips, strike that. When you come home from a trip, do you normally unpack your luggage?
When I come home from a trip,
You take a trip and you come home. Do you unpack your luggage?
some of it I do.
And usually you don't leave it in the luggage till your next trip, do you?
Some of it I do.
You do that? Is your next trip real soon, I hope, or either that or you have a lot of clothes, huh?
Yes.
But normally when you come home from a trip, you unpack your clothes, don't you?
Yes.
That's normal, isn't it?
Yes.
Is that right, sir?
Yes.
Okay, and thank you very much for coming today.
You're welcome.
Mr. Darden?
Just a couple of minutes, Your Honor. And officer, normally when you come home from a trip, you don't give your luggage to your criminal defense attorney either, do you?
Sustained. Sustained.
Officer, you just watched the video again, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you saw in the video that Howard Weitzman, the defendant's attorney, opened the door to Detective Van Adder's vehicle, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, typically when someone's arrested for murder, it's the officer that opens the door, correct?
Rephrase the question.
Okay, well, is that unusual? That is, that the criminal defense attorney would be opening the door to the detective's car as opposed to the detective himself?
Or
Yes, it is unusual.
Okay. And in this situation, that's exactly what happened, right?
Yes.
And then the defendant climbed into the back seat of that vehicle?
Yes, he
He
did.
didn't seem to have any trouble climbing into the back seat of that vehicle, did he?
oral.
No, he didn't.
Now, typically, we'll strike that. You've arrested people and placed them inside your vehicle before, correct?
Yes, I have.
And typically, don't you sort of put your hand on top of their head and help them into the back of the vehicle?
Yes, I make sure they don't hit their head when they enter.
Nobody did that in this case, did they?
No.
Wasn't necessary, was it?
No.
That's because the defendant wasn't in handcuffs, right?
That's correct.
And looking back at that video, after the defendant was inside Detective Van Adder's car, did you see Detective Van Adder and Mr. Weitzman embrace each other?
Yes, I did.
That doesn't happen too often, does it?
Oral. Oral. It's unusual.
I've never seen that ever before.
That's exactly what happened in this case, isn't it?
Yes.
Oral.
By the way, how long did you remain out at Rockingham that day?
Until, I would say, around 3 or 4 o'clock.
Okay. Were you there when the defendant returned home late that afternoon?
No, I wasn't.
Now, normally when you as a police officer transport someone who's been arrested for murder, don't you transport them in a vehicle that has some type of protection between the front seat and the back seat?
Petitioning, yes.
And you didn't see that in this car, did you? In Detective Van Adder's car?
No.
That's not good officer safety when you're in a situation where you're transporting someone under arrest for murder, is it?
Overruled.
No.
Have you ever seen anyone arrested for murder?
Yes.
And on those occasions, did you ever see anybody get treated any better
Overruled.
than the way Mr. Simpson was treated at that time by Detective Van Adder?
I've never seen a person arrested for murder treated in the way I saw this on the video. No.
That's not what you were taught in the academy, is it?
No.
Mr. Cochran asked you some questions about your ability to assess the defendant's demeanor when you saw him. Recall those questions?
Yes.
And you told Mr. Cochran that you'd never seen the defendant before when he was sad, correct?
That's correct.
You'd never seen him before when he was happy, right?
In person, no.
That's a hard call, isn't it, to assess someone's demeanor when you only met him for the first time. Is that right?
Somewhat, yes.
And it doesn't matter whether you're a policeman at the mouth of a driveway in Brentwood or a passenger on an airline, correct?
Sustained. Sustained.
Either way, it's difficult when you don't, when you haven't had any prior experience with the person, right?
Overruled.
Is that right?
It's a little more difficult, yes.
Okay. Now, you told us that you'd never seen anyone arrested for murder being treated in the manner the defendant was, and that is inconsistent with what you were taught in the academy?
Yes.
Okay. How was that different from what you were taught in the academy?
Well, if you're transporting a defendant arrested for murder, first of all, you don't walk in front of them. Number two, you usually have them handcuffed. As a matter of fact, always have them handcuffed. Number three, you usually transport them in a partitioned vehicle.
Could you characterize the treatment this defendant received that day as special treatment?
This is the third time we've asked this question.
I don't think I've ever used the term special treatment.
No, I think we have.
You think I have? Well, in that case, I'll sit down and be quiet, Your Honor. Thank you, officer.
You're welcome, sir.
I want you to assume hypothetically, officer, that an individual is in Chicago, Illinois, where he's flown and got less than 2 hours of sleep, and he's notified.
Sustained.
I'm going to pose a hypothetical to this officer.
Sustained. Assumes facts that aren't in evidence.
Well, let me add some additional facts. Not to be an expert.
Cal, I'm going to sustain the objection to this question, counsel. The jury is familiar with the timing.
Very well. Well, I want to ask one other question. Thank you, Your Honor. If Mr. Simpson, strike that. Did you notice that when Mr. Weitzman and Detective Van Adder had their hands on each other, they appeared to be close to each other as though they were whispering? You notice that? Yeah. Did you notice that?
They could have been whispering, but I'm not sure if they were or not.
All right. I'm sure you're not sure, but they could have been. And did you notice there was a press very, very close to them at the time that they were touching each other? Did you notice that?
I did see a few people near them. I don't know if it was press or not.
All right. If you looked at the video, we won't take the time to do it now. If you wanted to say something privately and the press was right behind you, you would move close to somebody. Isn't that correct? Isn't that correct?
Yes.
And the last question I want to ask you is, as a police officer with some 7 years of experience, you had a situation where an individual wanted to go down to West Los Angeles Station with you and make a complete statement to you, and you put him in the back of the car. You wouldn't have one of those.
Assumes that's not in evidence.
May I finish the question, Your Honor?
Hold on. Sustain.
Let's see if I can rephrase that, Your Honor. In your experience as a police officer, have you had a case where you had a situation where you talked to someone and they wanted to make a statement about a particular case, and you gave them a ride down?
Sustain.
I seek to restate it?
Sustain.
Very well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, sir.
All right, Officer Thompson, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next witness. Aren't we already familiar with this witness's testimony? All right, with the court reporter, please. All right, let's have the next witness, please. And counsel, as far as this witness, will go till 5. 5. All right, Mr. Meraz, will you come over here? Stand next to the podium, please. All right. All right. Good afternoon again, gentlemen. All right, counsel, there's seats over here. Yeah, there you go. All right, Mrs. Robertson?
Raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you may give in the following
Deputy Long?
in this court to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please have a seat in the witness stand and state and spell your first and last name for the record.
It's John Meraz, last name M-E-R-A-Z.
All right, Mr. Meraz, would you just sit back and then pull the microphone towards you, please? There you go. Thank you. Mr. Cochran?
Thank you very kindly, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Mr. Meraz.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Meraz, I'd like to direct your attention back to the month of June of 1994. At that time, how were you employed, sir?
I was employed by a police impound garage.
And which police impound garage were you, by which police impound garage were you employed?
Vertel's Automotive.
And prior to June of 1994, how long had you worked for Vertel's?
Had time 25 years.
And how were you employed by Vertel's, sir?
I was a tow truck driver.
And you have come here today pursuant to subpoena to testify, is that correct?
Yes, I have.
Now, I'd like to direct your attention back to the dates of June 14th or 15th of 1994. At that time, you still a tow truck driver?
Yes, I was.
And in that connection, did you have some connection with a white Bronco vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And on what date did you tow the Bronco vehicle at some time in June of 1994?
Yes, I did.
And do you recall what day it was that you towed that vehicle?
It was June 15.
All right, so on June 15th, which would have been a Wednesday?
Yes.
Okay. You tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury where you saw this Bronco vehicle, or you first saw it, on June 15th, I guess, which would be a Wednesday.
I was sent to 150 North San Pedro, which is the print shed.
Called the print shed?
Yes.
And is that the print shed for the LAPD?
Yes, it is.
All right. And when you say print, do you mean like fingerprint shed?
They do fingerprinting there. They do photography there. They do lasering there.
All right. Now, as an experienced driver of some 25 years' experience, had you gone to that print shed on occasions prior to June 15th, 1994?
I'd been there numerous of times, yes, to pick up cars.
And had you received some call to go and pick up this vehicle, the Bronco?
Yes, I was sent there, yes.
And you were at that time working for Vertel's, is that correct?
Yes, I was.
And did Vertel's have some kind of a contract with the city of Los Angeles?
Yes.
Tell me about that contract. Tell us about that contract.
It's a police impound yard, and he gets a permit from the city of Los Angeles to operate. And he's contracted by the Los Angeles Police Department.
All right, it's part of the
Officially
city.
called a police garage.
It's part of-
Officially called a police garage. It's OPG, stands for Official Police Garage.
Okay. OPG stands for Official Police Garage?
Yes, it does.
Okay. So you got this call, and do you remember about what time it was that you got this call to go to the print shed?
Sometime after 11 o'clock in the morning.
All right, and what kind of a vehicle were you driving when you responded to this call?
I was driving a one-ton Ford.
All right, and where did you go? This one-ton Ford.
This one-ton Ford, I was dispatched to call to go to 150 North San Pedro.
And once you got there, tell us what you observed, if anything, at 150 North San Pedro.
I went to 150 North San Pedro. I met the officer at the guard shack.
All right, and when you talked to an officer at the guard shack?
Yes, I did.
Do you know the name of that officer?
Not right off.
All right. Did you have some conversation with him? Yes,
he-
said yes or no.
Yes.
All right. After your conversation with this officer, tell us what happened next.
He directed to me as to where the car was.
All right, and then did you see this vehicle, this Ford vehicle?
Once I got there, yes.
All right. Did you drive in?
I drove in, yes.
Okay, with this vehicle that you were driving.
Yes, with the tow truck, yes.
Okay, and tell us what happened after you drove in.
He showed me where the vehicle was. I backed up to it, picked it up, and pulled out of the print shed.
All right, now, prior to backing up and pulling out of the print shed, did you have occasion to get inside that vehicle at all to make any kind of adjustments with regard to the steering column, anything of that nature?
Yes, I did.
All right, and was when you get inside the driver's compartment of the Bronco vehicle?
Yes, I did.
So that we're clear now, this is June 15th, about what time of day?
After 11 o'clock in the morning.
And before we talk about you getting inside the vehicle, this police officer you talked to, did he give you any kind of form or any kind of instructions regarding this particular vehicle?
When I got there, I knew some other officers that were in a building there, and I was talking to them.
All right. And you had a conversation with these officers?
Yes, I did.
Were you ever given any particular form called a vehicle investigation form, an impound form regarding this particular vehicle?
Well, I brought my own forms with me. We carried those forms, so I had 3 impound sheets with me.
All right, and did you fill that form out yourself?
Yes, I did. I started filling it out, and he finished it.
When you say he?
The officer, the impounding officer.
All right. And if you were to see this form that you brought with you, would you recognize the handwriting on that form?
Yes.
All right, Your Honor, I'd like to mark as defendants next in order, if the clerk pleases.
1252.
I'll put 1252 on this, Your Honor, in the approach.
Yes. You may.
I'm going to place before you, sir, what has now been marked as defendants 1252 and ask you to take a look at it and see, first of all, whether or not you recognize this form. In the upper left-hand corner, Your Honor, it's called a Los Angeles Police Department Vehicle Investigation Form.
It's not my form.
This is not your form?
That's not my impound. That is my name, but that's not the impound.
Okay, that John on there, that's you?
That's me, yes.
And this is not your form?
This is not the form that we take to the yard, but
Okay.
that is my name.
All right, let me ask you this. There's a name of an officer by the name of Harrow, H-A-R-O.
Yes.
Do you recognize that name
Yes, I
on
do.
this form?
Yes, I do.
All right, let me get another form. Why don't you
Okay.
hold on to this one? Let me get another. Approach again, Your Honor. This, and I'm not sure, this may be a very similar form. Is this, do you recognize the form to your left at all? It has a little different writing on it.
The left is the one I had.
Okay. Let me, Your Honor,
1253.
1253?
Yes.
All right. Okay, so this one here, this is 1253? And this is the one you recognize, is that correct?
That's the one I recognize,
All right.
yes.
Let me place it before you and just take a quick minute and look at it. All right, do you recognize that form?
Yes, I do.
And where there's, about midways down this particular form, it says garage employee signature, and it says John. Whose signature is that?
That's mine.
And you are John Meraz, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, now, did you have this form with you when you went over there to pick up this, this vehicle?
This is the form I had right here.
Okay. And so, for the record, did you fill out part of this form at all?
Yes, I did.
Can you indicate, in referring to the form, which portions of the form you filled out, what's in your handwriting?
On the top of this form, I put Ford Bronco and two-door, color white. That's as far as I got, and the officer finished the rest.
And was the officer this person, H-A-R-O, Haro?
Haro, yes.
If I was to place this on the, I'd like to place this on the, oh my God.
You may.
I want to ask some questions about it. Hi, Sherry. It's helpful to have a form. You can look down at the, now, may I give him a copy of this form? You can also refer to the monitor there if you like to, sir. Okay. Thank you. All right, now this form, this is 1253, I believe, Your Honor.
Yes.
This is the form that, point out for us again, while we can all see it, the parts of the form that you filled out.
Up on top, where it says Ford Bronco, now I started that. That is my handwriting. Two-door. I wrote down two-door.
All right,
I also put color, white,
all right.
and he finished the rest.
He meaning the police officer?
Police officer, yes.
All right. And did you sign this form at some point where it says John?
Down on the bottom,
All right,
on the
let's-
right-hand side.
Can you move that up a little bit so we can see where it says John? On the right-hand corner there at the bottom? That's your signature?
That's my signature, yes.
All right. Now, let's move back up to the upper left-hand corner of the form. There is a part of this form that indicates prints/evidence give special care. Do you remember, you see that part in the form in the upper left-hand corner?
Yes.
And after comes RHD, I guess for Robbery Homicide Division, 15452. Do you, when you got this particular form, Defendant's 1253, was that box checked for prints or any kind of special care?
The only thing that was marked was whole.
All right. Or was the box checked where it says prints?
No, the box was not checked.
All right, that was not checked, okay.
No, it wasn't.
Now, what about this thing that says hold?
Well,
Is that, let me strike that. Let me ask you another question. Where it says on the form, and we can move the form up, please, to the body of the form, up a little higher, please. All right, where it says hold until released to representative from Hertz Corporation. Were you aware of that being on that form?
I agree with you, since that asked the rest of the statement be read, I did.
Overruled.
All right. Do you recall seeing that at some point on the form, that hold until released to representative from Hertz Corporation?
up on top is where the hole is. You've got,
Objection, Mr. Young, is witness expertise.
Overruled.
No foundation.
Overruled.
You may answer.
up on top where you have okay to release and hole.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I went by hole on it only.
Okay. Did you feel that there was any special instructions given on this form regarding this particular vehicle?
No, there wasn't.
Speculation.
Overruled.
All right. And you had dealt with this form on many occasions before June 15th, 1994. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. So, as I understand it, you were just about to ask you, at some point prior to leaving the location of the print shed, you had occasion to observe this particular vehicle. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And in observing it, I believe you described that you got inside the vehicle. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Describe for the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what you did when you got inside this vehicle.
When I brought the vehicle out,
Objection, non-responsive.
Overruled.
when I got the vehicle out, I pulled it out from the print shed. I checked for the steering wheel to see that it was properly locked. I believe, I checked the emergency brake. Then I proceeded and I put the straps on the vehicle to tow it away.
All right, now, when you checked for the steering wheel, you were inside the vehicle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
You saw the steering wheel, did you?
Yes.
You see any blood on that steering wheel at all?
No, I didn't.
Did you, when you were inside that vehicle, did you have occasion to look around the inside of that vehicle, Mr. Meraz?
Yes.
Did you see any blood on the inside of that vehicle at that time?
I didn't see any blood at all.
Did you look inside that vehicle specifically to see if you could see any blood inside the vehicle?
Not till I got to the yard.
So when you were first in there, you didn't look, but when you got to the yard, you drove it to a yard, did you?
I towed it to the yard.
All right. When you were at the print shed, when you first looked at the steering column, you didn't see any blood, right?
I didn't see any.
All
I
right.
didn't see any at the print shed.
All right. And after you got the car in position to tow it, you then towed it somewhere. Is that correct?
Yes, I did.
And would I be correct in assuming that you hooked your vehicle to the back of it and towed it that way?
Towed it from the rear, yes.
From the rear. And where did you tow the vehicle to?
Towed the car to 1155 West Temple.
And what's located at 1155 West Temple?
That is a police impound yard, and that is Vertel's Automotive.
And how far is that from 150 North San Pedro?
I would say half a mile, maybe less.
Okay, so
More.
how long did it take you to get there?
10 minutes.
All right, now, so you drove to Vertel's yard, is that correct?
Yes.
And as you got there, did you become aware of any media or any attention regarding this particular vehicle?
I was followed by the news people when I got to First and Los Angeles Street. I stopped and I asked them not to follow me.
Okay, they were following you?
Yes.
Do you have an idea so the jury can get an idea how many vehicles are?
There was only one vehicle. It was a van.
All right. And did they stop you? Did they follow you at that point, or did they stop?
I stopped because I got the light and I got out of the truck. I walked over to them. I says, "Would you please not follow me?"
All right.
And
Did they adhere to that? Did they stop following you? Did they stop following you at that point?
they followed me up to Temple,
All right.
and from
Now, once you got to Vertel's, tell us what you did at that point.
all the employees at Vertel's were waiting there for me.
And when you say waiting, what was that? Why were they waiting for you?
Well, I'd radio that I was in tow with O.J. Simpson's car.
And when you say all the employees are waiting for you, how many employees were there waiting for you at that time?
I couldn't give you the exact count on that. Could have been 10 employees there at that time.
10?
Yes.
Do they have some particular interest in this vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, when you pulled into the yard at some point?
Yes, I did.
And what'd you do when you pulled inside?
I pulled in and I backed up into one of the stalls that was there.
And which stall did you back into, if you know?
Well, the main lot.
And, okay, and was there a number to that particular stall?
Well, the main lot is called T3.
Okay, and is that a secure lot at all?
No, it's not a secure lot. It's an open lot.
All right, so you backed the car up and put it in T3, an open lot?
Yes.
All right. At some point, did you unhook this particular vehicle?
Yes, I did.
All right. And did you have occasion to get back inside that vehicle again?
Yes, I did.
When you got back inside that vehicle, Mr. Meraz, did you get a chance to look inside specifically to see if there was any blood inside that vehicle?
Yes, I did.
And what did you notice, if anything, at that point?
I didn't see any blood.
Now, you told us that that vehicle was coming from the print shed. Did you see any evidence as though the inside of that vehicle had been printed with any dark print powder at all?
Car was not printed.
And how do you know it wasn't printed?
Well, through the years, I'm familiar with the print that they put on these vehicles. It's either gray or black that's put on these vehicles, and there was none of that on it.
And are you saying there was none of that inside the vehicle?
Inside or around the car.
And you looked, did you?
Yes, I did.
Now, these other employees, these 10 or so employees of Vertel's who were interested in this vehicle, did they at any point come toward the vehicle once you arrived there?
They were curious.
They come over to start looking at the vehicle?
Yes.
Yeah, this might be a good point at this point.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, as far as the jury is concerned, we're going to take our recess for the afternoon. I have a few matters I need to take up with the lawyers, so we're going to stop now at 5 o'clock. Please remember all my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions about the case, conduct any deliberations until the matter has been submitted to you, or allow anybody to communicate with you. As far as the jury is concerned, we'll stand in recess until 9 o'clock. Mr. Meraz, you're ordered to come back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. All right, let's clear the jury, and then we'll resume.